Have you ever wanted to heal your party, to be the most useful person in your group, to be the most dependent person on the group, depending on you? Something like that, construction with words.
Yeah, because we want you to be dependable and have a healer on the ready, because we need to do dungeons as well. We don't have any healers apart from like 1 or 2.
Well, listen, this is the video where we talk about to play or not to play any of the healer specs in our humble opinion and experience. Obviously, it's very subjective, of course.
We just put them all into S tier. Everybody just go play healers now.
Not quite S tier, but definitely most of them, they're not that many. They're gonna be ranked pretty high. That's no joke. But yeah, we're looking at, how the specs interact, how they play out, the fantasy of it, the looks, the sounds, the mechanics, and to some extent the performance as well, because you do want to actually do have an impact in your group or whatever. So it has to have a little bit of performance as well.
A little bit of info. Obviously, this is not a meta-analysis, so because we were seeing the comments, by the way. This is just what we think is probably the best healers to start with, what are the most easy to get into, and also be rewarding in terms of playstyle, in terms of overall performance and all of that.
Oh, for sure. And before we get into that, make sure you check out our Diablo channel if you haven't already. If you play Diablo 4, it's in the description. Diablo Forever, that's the name of it. We do a lot of guides, a lot of videos on lore and news and all of that, and we basically love it, and we would appreciate you helping us out. It means the world to us. All right, check the link in the description, youtube.com/@Diablo4Ever. Restoration Shaman, the first on the list. I would say you have quite a lot of experience with Resto Shaman.
I have some love for this spec. Oh, for sure.
Why?
This expansion I took a different route. I was like, I want to play something that I've never played before, and obviously I went with Preservation. But Restoration Shaman has always been my ideal healer spec. It's one of the most fun, and surprisingly, it's one of the strongest healers right now, and also one of the simplest to play. It feels like it's the healer that has everything in terms of like, oh, I want to heal, bam, do some really cool healing stuff. I want the DPS, bam, you can do the DPS stuff with a lot of bams, and you have a lot of really cool, obviously it's the Shaman healer that has all the cool effects with all the rains and the waves and all of that stuff. It's really
definitely nice. Visually and thematically, it's one of like the coolest healing specs out there. I would say it has like some sort of like, right now, it has some sort of like answer for like basically everything. So in terms of like, okay, you can get into it into like, easier content, but you can definitely perform well and maintain into like high-end content as well. So
specifically with the totems, I feel like this is a spec that everybody should try out, and I would put it into S tier.
Yes.
As one of the specs to go. It's not complicated, it's not the easiest, but it does give you a lot of things to handle and contend with.
Okay. Now, Discipline Priest, very contentious topic. I know a lot of people are very scared of Discipline Priest or just do not understand how it works. They don't like the mechanics of it. However, I used to be that guy, once you get into it, once you get to like the swing of Discipline Priest and how it works and how much fun it is to actually like get everything rolling with the damage through attunement to like all of the defensive options you have. I still believe Discipline Priest has the most defensive tools, the prevention tools out of all the healers. A lot of cooldowns that prevent the damage, not necessarily direct healing, plus the combination of DPSing and healing, although it's not as potent as it was in the past, because you do have like Power Radiance, which heals for a ton. You have like the Shadow.
Some people like that, to not feel like they're tied into atonement, and I think they did really well. Because I always felt like Power Radiance was a fun part of spreading atonements, one of the funnest way to spread atonements, and now it's also impactful in terms of the healing that it's doing. And I think it's really cool. Not to mention, personally, what I enjoyed about Discipline, probably more than any other healer here, is the way that they've designed the spec, where you have a clear Shadow spec, more focused towards damage. You have a clear Holy spec. You can build your Discipline if you're not necessarily interested in, being the creme de la creme, the top of the food chain. You can build it to be able to heal without having to rely heavily on atonement. You can have a more impactful absorb playstyle and things like that. And I think priests are always going to be really good, specifically with Power Infusion. So if you want to make sure that you always will be welcome in a group, I think Discipline Priest is yes.
It has to be into S tier, because we
both
love it. And again, for those of you who are afraid of its mechanics, just try it out. Have patience with yourself. Once you get the swing of it, it's a spec that you'll never let go, healing wise.
For sure,
okay,
for sure.
Holy Paladin, man, this was a ride for Holy Paladin, for me at least. I used to love playing Holy Paladins for the longest time. I don't think they really made it, they didn't do it justice like completely in Dragonflight. There was still a lot of like holes to be filled with the spec, although looking at the rework that is coming up, I definitely have more.
It definitely helps. I think it's still not there quite yet. We were talking about how Discipline Priest has probably the best cooldowns ever defensively. Holy Paladin will probably be a close second.
Yes.
With immunities on top of everything else, although you cannot really use them on the tank all the time.
No, but you can use it on party members to get mechanics and stuff, so yeah.
I have mixed feelings about Holy Paladin because my feelings will make me put it a little bit lower. But I do believe it's a very, very good healer to play. It has a very good toolkit to handle almost all situations. The fan is good. You're actually not squishy right now, which feels really good because with all the Paladin reworks that we've had in the last couple of months, I think it's a really, if you do have to get into the melee playstyle, that's something that doesn't escape it. Sure, with the rework, you can kind of like weave a little bit of casts in, so that's cool. But I do feel like if you're going to go into Holy Paladin, you need to keep that in mind that you're going to be swinging your mace, your sword, whatever, a little bit. However, I do believe that this is a spec that everybody should put. I don't know where you're putting. I'm thinking something A tier-ish.
No, this is a B tier. B tier, yes. There's still things to be done. I still feel there's a couple of issues with the spec. It's not like in the category do not play. It's in the category of to play. But do keep in mind there are still things that need to be worked on the spec, especially if like you want to go for the full-on ranged build. There's still issues there even in 10.1.5. So there's still iteration on that. This is why I would have put it into A tier if like both spectrums of the builds would be completely powerful. We'll have to see, okay? But for now, you know, it's still a to play, but you know, keep in mind it's there's issues
some
with
caveats
it.
For sure.
Okay, now Holy Priest. I'll have to tell you, like the more and more I look at Holy Priest like streams and stuff, the more and more I play with Paravel and say I'm attracted to this spec more and more. Maybe it's some reminiscence of I am thinking I'm leveling my priest, so I am thinking about like trying it once again. It is like a healing spec that works out and can like basically deliver in all capacity. You know, more classic playstyle where you do have to like cast a lot. There's a ton of buttons to be used. This translates into multiple tools that are accessible to you, and it can be engaging and fun. It's not, for me, it's not as engaging as Discipline Priest, but it has some sort of weird appeal. I cannot pinpoint what it is, but I feel it's just when I see those big heals.
They're actually doing really well with making Holy Priest. Holy Priest is usually my least favorite healer spec, but once again, similar to Holy Paladin, I'm gonna try to keep my bias aside. I think they're doing really well in terms of designing Holy and making it look like a cool spec. It's the angelic spec of the healers, right? Like a lot of RPGs nowadays have this aspect to them. It's a very, very, not necessarily cookie cutter, but it's something that people can understand. It's a Holy Priest. You are essentially healing. You have a spell called Heal, Greater Heal, and all of that stuff. It's really cool.
It's in the name.
Personally, it's similar to Beast Mastery. If a spec has a very low barrier of entry and it does really well, I would put it necessarily high. I cannot really see it as high as Discipline because I feel like you do have to hardcast a lot. That's exactly what I was gonna.
It's an A tier, man. It's an A tier.
It's good. You can start with Holy Priest if you've never healed with anything ever before, and it's hardly difficult to get into.
Yeah. Same story with the rest of Shaman. Okay, maybe Discipline is one of the specs that it's a little bit harder.
Has a little bit of a higher learning curve.
But the Holy is like similar to Resto, where you can go into like the entry level stuff, and then you can also do very well on end game stuff. So just very good. It definitely a two-play spec. Mistweaver Monk.
This has been
all-time favorites for us.
Over the years, I think this has been consistently the least played spec in the game. I don't know the numbers of the parties right now.
Why?
Well, I mean, there are a couple of issues with Mistweaver in terms of overall design. I would expect it to be the next healer addressed. I hope it's going to be the next healer addressed. Don't get me wrong, it's actually doing really well. Obviously, you can watch our previous healer tier list. You can see in the meta how it actually ranks in terms of performance. It's not in a bad spot. However, it does lack some serious things. Like if we're talking about even a simple spec like Holy Priest, Mistweaver just lacks a bunch of cooldowns that can really impact the group and kind of save you a lot. Revival is a very controversial ability that it does decent healing, but it's on a long cooldown and dispels everything. But there aren't situations where you want to dispel a lot of things all at once. However, the playstyle is probably one of the most fun playstyles that you can have on a healer if you like, of course, meleeing. It has the monk playstyle where you weave in abilities left and right and you extend it. But then again, that's not very straightforward for people never healing before and going into a healer. You might, try to wrap your head around on how to maintain renewing mist up, playing Rising Mist, and kicking all over the place and healing with your kicks.
It's still the most efficient way to heal. You can still go for a more like offhand, to the side range healer build, but it's not as efficient, right? As I like the fist weaving stuff. And yeah, I can definitely see
kind
why.
Of the Holy Paladin argument where you're kind of really forced into a similar playstyle as you were for.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I agree. It is like by far the most fun healer. For me, out of all of them, I never had more fun with a healer.
It's hilarious.
It's almost like a Windwalker monk, who just heals left and right. It's beautiful. Because of its restrictions, and because of it still like needs a lot of things, like specifically on the defensives department for your party. I'm not saying make it the discipline priest, just make into some mechanics that you would put some defensives on or whatever. Front of the B tier.
Yeah, I would put it around B tier-ish as well.
Okay, still a to play.
Although Holy Paladin has a better kit, I feel Mistweaver's League's fun, more fun to play.
Much more fun for us. Again,
for sure.
Our little thing here. All right, Mr. Preservation Evoker. Oh yeah, I have never touched Preservation Evoker. You have tons of experience with it. So
this is a mixed bag because this spec is undergoing, an identity crisis, as with, how Demon Hunters were, but like an expansion 2 later. Right now, at least in Dragonflight, they're addressing the new Evoker class a little bit earlier, so they're kind of changing playstyles a lot. Like over the course of the first season, Preservation undergone 3 playstyle changes that eventually ended up with me not liking the spec as much. However, in terms of the kit, because we did mention on Mistweaver, it does have one of the best healer cooldowns, period. It has one of the best mobilities, period. It is fun rotationally to play, not as fun as Mistweaver, but it is fun. Obviously, because this is also part of what we enjoy when playing World of Warcraft. The aspect of it, the way it looks, is still the Evoker Lizard Drakthir thing, which is
not gonna comment.
It's the same as pretty much Devastation. It doesn't really change. It does the healing effects are actually very nice. I think they've done a much better way of implementing the animations for Preservation than they did for Devastation. But I feel like Preservation has probably a higher learning curve than maybe any other healer right now. It's not particularly difficult. Once you get into it, it's gonna be easy, but the talent system is not very straightforward for a new player. You're likely gonna have to ask somebody or watch a guide on figure out how to play it. So I would probably put it around B tier-ish as well.
Okay, but this is the
below Holy.
Below Holy. Okay, so it's at the end.
I wouldn't put it C tier because it's one of the best healers in the game.
It wouldn't like do it justice. Come on. All right, last on the list, Restoration Druid. I think for the last 2 expansions, this was the healer I played the most when I did play a healer. And I always love Restoration Druid. I think the core concept of the Restoration Druid with all its like changes to like talents and buffs and nerfs and whatever, the core of it has never really changed, right? So you build up all of your HOTS, you make sure everything is sticking right, then you can, transition into doing other things like DPSing or, CCing or being useful in any capacity or whatever. I feel its gameplay loop, it's very rewarding. I love the fact that this is one true healer that is relying on dots, but it's not only that. Like when shit gets messed up, you have tools to address that. Not as powerful as some other healers, but it still does the job.
In terms of its rotation, it has a little bit of a learning curve similar to Discipline Priest. For the longest time, it has been thought of as one of the more difficult healers to play efficiently. However, I do have to say that I'm a little bit biased because obviously I'm a Druid fan. I think this is one of the most once you get past that, it's one of the most relaxing healers to play because you have so much flexibility in everything that you do.
Yes.
You have the mobility, you have the tankiness, you have the damage, you have the healing, you have a lot of stuff. The only thing that's really missing is a bloodlust. But you can resurrect people, you can keep people up while you're doing damage, and having access to all the shapeshifts can create a really fun experience when you're trying to play the spec, because you can just change it. You can be a cat and, heal and do damage as a cat. You can do it as an owl. You can be a bear and just like take a lot of damage to the face and not really care. No other healer can actually do that. And for me also, Restoration Druid has been one of the favorite healers to play. It was my second most played healer ever, and I would probably put it very, very high.
Yeah, this is another S tier for us. Okay, so again, the argument, it's easy to get into, not really. Restoration Druid is not easy to get into, but Flame really like underlined it perfectly there. Once you get past it, even more than with Discipline Priest, you will have a blast, because yes, the gameplay after you learn it is pretty much chill out and you have time to do a lot of other things. Plus, I feel like this was my issue when I first started playing Restoration Druid. I didn't really know how to react to like oh shit moments, right? Up until I really got into like how everything works. But they do have those buttons to press when that happens. So you can talk about having like a good old chill time while playing Restoration Druid, but when shit hits the fan, you have everything there as well.
You feel like a superhero when you have all the dots up of wild growth and its tranquility, and just look at everybody staying alive.
It's one of the coolest feelings to like for playing a healer when you have all the dots rolling and everybody's just, you see all those green numbers.
The hots.
Going, yeah, the hots. So this is like the final list. We cannot really go into like not recommend or not to play any of these healer specs because they're all kind of good in their own capacity in some way. Sure, we can have a discussion about how fun a Holy Paladin is versus how fun a Restoration Shaman is, for example. But there's also the factor that, you know, not all of them feel as complete when put against each other. Personal preference in the mix as well. But basically, all the healers are worth trying out to play.
When you want to play a healer, you need to understand that the difference between one healer and another is probably higher than the difference between one DPS and another.
Yeah, for sure.
They're very unique. They do unique stuff. And in Dragonflight, to be honest, as much as I don't like the healing meta, that has nothing to do with the actual specs, it's probably the funnest time to actually play a healer. They have the most amount of toys to play with, the coolest interactions and cooldowns and all of that. You're gonna have a blast either way.
Yeah, all right. And have a blast for watching our videos and take your Patreons for supporting the content. Make sure to check the link in the description. And also don't forget about our Diablo 4 channel. youtube.com/@Diablo4ever. That's what the number 4. Diablo number 4 ever. That's what it is.
Smart name.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great one. Bye.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.